What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at our 2025 ATP predictions.
It's tennis nearer the gods!
First up, we'll be taking a look at the 4 Grand Slams of the year. So Seb, for the first one, who do you think is going to be winning the Australian Open?
Well, look, Zverev's had a very good year. I reckon it's about time that he wins the slam. I think he's going to take a... What about you, Ren?
That's a good point. I don't want to go with the obvious answer, but it's hard to go past Sinner.
Yeah.
He's been unstoppable in hard courts.
What is
and
it, 73 and 6 this year?
Yeah, that's ridiculous stats. And I think he's the heavy favourite to win in Melbourne. So Seb, who do you think is going to win the French Open next year?
Well, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I reckon Alcaraz will take it. Despite not the best year, I reckon he can perform pretty well on clay, and he'll take it.
That's a pretty good prediction. I think it will be Tsitsipas. This might be a bit of an interesting prediction, but I think Tsitsipas, this is the year where he rediscovers his form. He's obviously, we all know he's incredible in clay. He's one of those in Monte Carlo, and I think why not? I think he could absolutely make a deep run or even win the title.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So for Wimbledon, who have you got?
I've got an interesting prediction, but Kyrgios is who I'm picking. He's very fired up this year. He's already playing in Brisbane next year, so I reckon he's going to take it.
Wow, that's a big one.
That's bold, eh?
This is slightly also quite bold. I'm going to go with Taylor Fritz. He's got a huge serve, big game, and I reckon he could really do some damage on grass. I think this year he picked up a title in Eastbourne on grass, and I think he really stepped up his level this year, and I reckon he can go one step further and win a Grand Slam. Seb, so who do you think is going to win the final Slam of the year at the US Open?
Look, I hate to be that guy. Sinner, though. He's the god of hardcourt at the moment. I doubt there's going to be a season without Sinner winning a slam for a while, so yeah, I've got Sinner for sure.
Can't go wrong with Sinner. I've actually gone with Medvedev. I think he's played well there in the past. Obviously, he hadn't had the best year last year.
He's won there before.
Yeah, he has won there before. It's hard to think he's only won one Grand Slam, and I think he's really dangerous on hard courts. I feel like he could upset someone like a Sinner or an Alcaraz on the way, and why not? So this isn't technically a Grand Slam, but Seb, who wins the ATP Finals in 2025?
Look, it's called the fifth slam for a reason. Huge event. I reckon Fritz is going to get it. His performance this year has been crazy. He's really earned his spot in the top 10. I think he's definitely going to take it. And I don't even think that's a hot take. I think he's definitely going to win.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Fritz is going to be one of the favourites. For me, I've gone up with Alcaraz. I haven't picked Alcaraz for any of the slams, and I think although Sinner and Zverev will have better seasons than Alcaraz, I think he's due to pick up his first ATP Finals.
He's having a similar issue that Rafa had, as like he gets really bad burnout at the end of the season. So
That's right.
He needs to learn how to control his effort throughout the entire season, so he's still got room to win a title at the end.
Yeah, I totally agree. So next up, we're going to be looking at some title and player predictions for next year.
Look, don't hate on this, guys, but I reckon Arthur is going to take it. I reckon he'll win in Paris, actually, to be specific. He's been slowly working his way up the rankings. He's at 24 now. He's had an incredible year, and yeah, I think he's going to be able to take it, especially with that home crowd. What about you, Ren?
I'm going to go with Musetti. Obviously, this year he had probably his best year to date in his career. Bronze medal, a bunch of semi-finals at Wimbledon. I think he's a threat on especially clay courts. I think he's going to be one of the stars of the future. I could see him doing really well next year.
And he's young.
Yeah, he is. I think it's going to be Gabriel Diallo. He had a good run in Almaty, and I think, well, we've just seen glimpses of his potential. I think he could easily go through the top 50, like something we've seen with Mpechi Perikar, Shang as well. Yep. Some of these players who can just improve immensely in 1 year. And I think Diallo's he's like 6'9" or something. He's huge. Yeah, he's got the determination. He's got the mental strength. He's got the weapons. And I think next year is going to be his year. So next we're going to be counting down the year-end top 10 in 2025.
10th, I think Stefanos Tsitsipas will step back into the top 10. He had a terrible year this year, to be honest, but I think it's his turn to get back in there.
Speaking of getting to the top 10, I think Felix Auger-Aliassime, a name you probably haven't heard of in a while, he's had the most horrendous season other than one little useless run in Madrid. He's been nowhere to be seen, and he's completely dropped off the rankings. He's around the low 20s, maybe even 30s, and I think top 10 is a bit of a stretch, but I could see him starting off the year well, maybe making a deep run in AO, and then maybe doing well in Indian Wells or Miami. So I think he finishes 10th.
9th, I've got a bit of an interesting one. I think Andal is going to be 9th. He's been floating around the top 20 for a while now, but I think he's probably tired of that, and he'll be determined to get into the top 10.
Yeah, I could see that happening too. 9th, I've got someone who could drop down a bit. I reckon Medvedev. We're obviously seeing him have a really poor campaign at the ATP Finals at the end of the year.
We've also heard his mentality about
Yeah, he looked like he could like almost quit tennis next year, just about. 0 titles this year, and I think he's gonna keep dropping down. And I'll be surprised if he even finishes in the top 10, but I've got him at 9th for now.
So I'm going Ruud in 8th. I think he's a solid player. He can play well on hard court. Obviously, clay and grass, he's not the best, but I think
Obviously, Clayton's not the best.
he's got a decent forehand, and I think that's enough to keep him in there.
Someone who I think is gonna absolutely soar up the rankings. I think he's gonna have even more of a breakthrough next year, and that's again Arthur Fils. We've seen how much damage he can do in big tournaments like the 500s this year, and I think he could go one step further, maybe win a Masters or go deep at Grand Slams, which is something he hasn't been able to do, and I think he can finish 8th.
In 7th, I've got Dimonal. I think he's got good weapons. He's a bullet on the court. He plays really well on hard court and grass court. His game suits the sport, to be honest, and I think that's plenty to keep him in the top 10.
For me, I've got Andrei Rublev, a bit of an average year for his standards. I don't think much will change this year, and I think he'll be around the mid to lower top 10, and that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, I've gone similar to Ren. I've put Rublev in 6th, though. His mind is obviously super weak. He's good enough to stay in the top 10, but I don't think he's breaking top 5 anytime soon.
I've got Casper Ruud. For similar reason to Seb, I think just the clay court 250s, he could pick up a title in Geneva, Lyon, and that's just going to be enough to keep him in the contention for slams and the top 10. But I don't think he's going to be doing anything remarkable this year.
In 5th, I've gone Fritz. That might be lower than some of you expected, but look, I think racket head speed isn't enough to beat your Sinners, your Alcarazes, and his Zverevs. So yeah, I've got Fritz in 5th. He's definitely earned his place in the top 5, but I'm putting him at the lower end.
So earlier I mentioned that Tsitsipas was my prediction to win the French Open, and I think he could finish in the top 5 again. Obviously this year, kind of a bit of a shock to him. He dropped out of the top 10 and didn't even play ATP Finals. So I think with some help from a few deep runs and some clay court events like the French Open, I think he'll be back in the top 5.
So I've actually gone pretty dissimilar to Ren. I've put Medvedev in 4th. So I think he's a very solid player, even with his remarks about not finding the motivation to play at ATP Finals. He's playing good tennis, and I think he's solid enough on hard court to keep him top 5 comfortably, to be honest.
Yeah, he's always going to be a threat in the top 5. We've got Carlos Alcaraz, pretty obvious pick. Some people have got him finishing maybe 1 or 2, but I don't think he's going to be having a great season. I don't think he'll pick up any slams. Maybe he'll win the ATP Finals, but I can't see him doing that well this year, so I've got him at 4th.
Some of the people he's lost to this year, you've got Jarry, Mahatch, like, you can't be losing to those kinds of players if you're going to be 1 or 2 in the world.
So to finish 2nd in the world, I've got Alexander Zverev. I've got not much to say. He's just probably the most consistent player in the world, not named Jannik Sinner this year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
That's a good point.
he's basically got a flawless game. The serve and the hand strokes are just huge weapons for him. Apart from Sinner, like, he's going to be one of the best players in the world next year.
Absolutely. I've gone with Zverev in number 2 for that same reason. He's almost had a bit of a breakout year this year. He's always been in the top 10, but this year his game has really just leveled up. Not much I can say about that.
So who do you expect me to put at number 1? It's obviously got to be Jannik Sinner. I do not see him moving off the top spot next year. This could be some really subtle foreshadowing if he drops out of the top 100 or gets suspended. Maybe not as good as this 2024 season, but like, he's gonna be a very, very, very good player for the years to come.
I know I didn't mention his name twice in the slams, but I think I can definitely see him pulling 2 slams next year. So I've put him at number 1 for that reason. He's just way too dominant to go anywhere else.
So finally, Seb, I'm gonna be asking you, what is your hot take for 2025?
My hot take for next year is that some player outside the top 20 is going to win a Masters. I'm not too sure who, but I definitely think it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's quite bold. We saw that with Popperin this year, obviously.
Absolutely.
And there's a bunch of players who are in the contention for that. For my hot take, I think that Thomas Partey is going to die in a car crash.
What?
I never already mentioned this earlier in the video, but I think Felix Auger-Aliassime, obviously, I think he's going to finish back in the top 10. He's really struggled with injury and just form over the last 2 years. I could see him getting back up there. He's obviously still young. He's got time. We've seen glimpses of his talent, and I reckon he could go back in the top 10 next year.
Alright, thanks for watching, guys. See you next Tuesday.